The night was supposed to be the happiest of my life. The lights twinkled, the music played, and I stood there in my white dress, waiting to say I do to the man who had promised to love me forever. Solomon and I had spent months preparing for this moment. Every detail was planned, our dream wedding. But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to witness. As the vows were being exchanged, I saw her, Lola. She was standing just a few feet away from me, and I could feel her eyes on Solomon, the way she looked at him with a smile that spoke more than words ever could. I froze for a second, a sick feeling gnawing in my stomach. But it wasn't just her presence. It was the way Solomon responded to her. His smile widened, his eyes softened. He looked at her as if she was more than just a guest at our wedding. She wasn't just any woman. She was the woman. For a moment, I felt as though the room had closed in on me. The crowd faded into the background, and the only thing that mattered was the painful truth that was unfolding right in front of me. My mind raced, my heart pounded, and every instinct screamed for me to do something, anything, to stop this madness. But I stayed still, frozen in place, my hands trembling at my sides. The ceremony continued, but I couldn't focus. All I could see was Solomon and Lola exchanging glances, glances filled with something I hadn't seen in his eyes for me in years: desire. They both knew something I didn't. The truth that had been hidden in the shadows was now out in the open, but I was too naive to see it until now. As we moved to the reception, the tension in the air thickened. Solomon was supposed to be by my side, but instead, he was lost in conversation with Lola. My heart clenched tighter with every laugh they shared, every touch that seemed just a little too intimate. The other guests saw nothing, oblivious to the slow, painful unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my husband. "Excuse me," I whispered to my maid of honor, trying to keep my composure. "I need to step outside for a moment." I couldn't bear it anymore. The overwhelming urge to confront him, to demand the truth, bubbled up inside me, but I held it in. I walked out to the balcony, the cool night air offering a slight reprieve from the heat that clung to me inside. How could he do this to me? I stared at the stars, my hands clutching the railing. My mind raced, images of their secret smiles flashing before my eyes. The lies, the deceit, it all hit me at once. "Are you okay?" A voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned, startled, to see my best friend, Ada, standing there. She must have noticed the change in my demeanor. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just need some air." But she wasn't fooled. She walked up to me, standing silently for a moment before speaking again. "You know, I've been trying to tell you, but I didn't know how." My heart skipped a beat. "Tell me what?" Ada took a deep breath. "Solomon, he's been seeing someone. I didn't want to ruin your day, but I think you need to know." The world seemed to shift beneath my feet. The shock hit like a slap to the face. No, that can't be true." "I'm sorry," Ada said softly, her eyes filled with pity. "But I've seen the way he looks at her, the way he's been acting. It's not just a friendship, Amara. It's more. It's everything." I felt the weight of her words like a heavy stone sinking deep into my chest. "I knew something was off," I whispered. "But I never imagined it was like this. Not now, not on our wedding day." Ada's hand rested gently on my shoulder. "You need to confront him, Amara. He doesn't deserve your silence." The tears I had been holding back threatened to spill over, but I blinked them away, forcing myself to stand tall. I couldn't cry, not yet. I had to be strong. I had to make sure Solomon understood the consequences of his actions. With my heart pounding, I turned to face Ada. "I will, and he'll regret it. I'm not going to let him get away with this." As I walked back into the reception hall, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Solomon had just crossed a line, and now it was my turn to make him feel the weight of his betrayal. But what will Solomon say when confronted? Will Amara's revenge be swift, or will the betrayal cut deeper than she imagined? Find out in the next chapter. If you're ready to see how this drama unfolds, hit that like button and subscribe. What do you think Amara should do next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more of this intense ride. The next morning came slowly, painfully. I woke up to the sound of Solomon's soft breathing beside me, his arm draped over me as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I wasn't the same woman who had gone to sleep the night before, betrayed, heartbroken, and lost. The woman lying next to him now was different. She was angry. She was powerful. She was ready to make him pay. I lay still for a moment, listening to his even breaths, feeling the warmth of his body next to mine. How had he managed to sleep so soundly? Did he have no guilt, no remorse? I felt my stomach churn as the reality of his infidelity settled deeper in my bones. His lies were everywhere now, in every inch of this house, in the soft sheets, the pillow that still smelled like him. How long had it been going on? How much had he hidden from me? I didn't know yet, but I would find out. I slowly pulled away from him, careful not to wake him, and padded to the bathroom. As I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. I had been blind to his lies, too trusting, too naive to see what was happening right in front of me. But not anymore. The Amara who was going to let him get away with it was gone. In her place was a woman who would make sure he knew the cost of betraying her. The day dragged on in a blur. I stayed in the house, pretending that everything was fine. Solomon went to work, the usual "see you later," babe slipping from his lips like it was any other day. His casualness burned like fire in my chest. How dare he act like nothing was wrong? I was on a mission now. My plan was clear. I wouldn't confront him in anger, not yet. I needed him to feel the weight of his lies first. I needed him to come to me. And when he did, when he realized how much I knew, I would be ready. As the afternoon wore on, I went through the motions of making dinner, cleaning the house, and pretending to be the perfect wife. But inside, I was far from it. Every time I glanced at my phone, I saw the text messages and pictures I had secretly saved over the last few weeks. Each one was a reminder of the betrayal that had been brewing behind my back. And with each passing hour, the anger inside me grew. Solomon returned home later than usual, as I had expected. I heard the front door open, the sound of his footsteps coming closer. He didn't seem to notice the tension in the air, or maybe he was too caught up in his own guilt to care. Either way, I wasn't going to make it easy for him. I wanted him to sweat, to realize that the woman he thought he could walk all over wasn't going to let him get away with it. "Hey, babe," he called out from the hallway. I didn't respond immediately. I didn't even look at him. I was busy, pretending to focus on the pots on the stove. "Amara, what's going on?" His voice softened, a touch of concern in it, but I knew better. It was just his attempt to keep up the act. I turned slowly, meeting his gaze. His face was still the same, calm, composed, as though nothing had happened. It made my blood boil. "Nothing," I said quietly, my voice calm. "Dinner's almost ready. You're home late." He seemed relieved at the lack of confrontation, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He knew something was off, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. "Yeah, work ran a little longer than I expected," Solomon said, hanging his coat on the chair. "I'm starving. What's for dinner?" But I wasn't paying attention to the food or the small talk. I was looking at him, studying his face, watching the way he moved. The guilt was there. I could see it in the way he avoided eye contact, the way his hand trembled slightly when he reached for his glass of water. He knew. I walked over to him slowly, deliberately, my heart racing in my chest. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. "Do you love her?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air between us, thick with the weight of everything that had happened. He froze. His hand, which had been reaching for the glass, faltered mid-air. His eyes widened in shock, and for the first time I saw the fear in them. It was subtle, but it was there. "What are you talking about?" His voice was defensive, but I could tell he wasn't convinced by his own words. The calm mask was slipping. "I'm talking about Lola," I said, my voice steady, controlled. "I'm talking about the woman you've been seeing behind my back." Solomon's face turned pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but then closed it again, as if the words wouldn't come. He turned away, rubbing the back of his neck in an almost nervous gesture. You've been lying to me, haven't you? I continued, my voice calm, almost too calm. I know everything, Solomon. The text messages, the bank statements, the photos. You thought you could hide it, but you didn't. You've been living a double life, and now it's all coming out. He finally turned back to face me, his expression a mix of guilt and anger. Amara, you don't understand, he started, but I didn't let him finish. I understand more than you think, I snapped. And the truth is, I've had enough. I'm not the fool you think I am. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the silence between us heavy and thick. I could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to find a way out of this mess. But there was no easy escape. He had been caught. Will Solomon be able to talk his way out of this? Or is Amara's patience wearing thin? How far will she go to get the revenge she craves? Find out in the next part. If you're dying to know what happens next, hit that like button and subscribe. This is just the beginning of Amara's journey. How you think she'll handle this betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments. The night stretched on in silence. Solomon and I sat across from each other, the tension thick between us. I had finally shattered the calm, but the storm was only beginning. His usual bravado was gone, replaced by uncertainty. His eyes, once filled with confidence and control, now flickered with fear, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind as he tried to salvage the situation. I couldn't help but relish the shift. For so long, I had been the one second-guessing myself, ignoring the signs, the whispers of betrayal. But now I was in control. Now, it was his turn to feel the heat of the fire he had lit. Solomon broke the silence first, his voice shaking ever so slightly. Amara, I never meant for you to find out like this. His words were rehearsed, hollow. You know I love you. Stop, I cut him off, my voice cold and firm. You don't get to say that anymore. His face tightened, and for a moment I saw something in him. Was it regret? No, it was something darker, something defensive. I made a mistake, Amara. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I don't want to lose you. I leaned forward, narrowing my eyes, my gaze never leaving his face. You already lost me, Solomon. You just don't know it yet. He swallowed hard, his chest rising and falling in a controlled manner. Please, just listen. I have listened, I interrupted, my voice steady, but the anger beneath it simmering. I've listened to your lies, to your excuses, to your betrayal. And I've had enough. He opened his mouth again, but I wasn't interested in hearing any more of his pitiful excuses. I had heard enough over the years. What I needed now was justice, the kind that would shake him to his core. You think this is about forgiveness? I asked, my voice low, filled with bitterness. This isn't about forgiving you. This is about showing you the consequences of your actions. This is about you understanding just how much you've lost, just how much you've thrown away. I stood up, walking slowly to the window, the weight of my words hanging in the air between us. I don't need you anymore, Solomon. I don't need your lies or your empty promises. I'm done. The words left my mouth with a finality that hit both of us. Solomon sat there, stunned, unable to process what was happening. The man who had once ruled over everything I thought I knew about our marriage was now the one at a loss for words. Amara, please don't do this, he begged, his voice almost pleading now. But it was too late. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to be the woman who quietly endured anymore. I turned back to him, my eyes hard. Do you know what the worst part is, Solomon? It's not that you cheated. It's that you never thought I would find out. You thought I was too naive, too trusting to see what was right in front of me. But now you've awakened something in me that you're never going to be able to put back to sleep. His expression shifted again, confusion and fear taking over. Amara, please? I swear I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want. I couldn't help but scoff. Anything? Is that what you think? That you can buy me back? You can't even fix this, Solomon. You've already lost me, and there's nothing you can do to change that. I could see the desperation in his eyes. Amara, please, I love you. You're everything to me. I can't lose you. But the words felt hollow. He was desperate now, grasping for the last remnants of a life he had destroyed. It was almost pathetic. You already have, I replied softly. and now it's my turn." I paused for a moment, letting the silence settle between us before I spoke again. "I'm not just going to let you walk away from this, Solomon. You're going to feel every ounce of what you've done to me. And it's going to start with the house." His eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" I smiled coldly. "You'll see soon enough. You thought you could play both sides, live this double life, and get away with it. But I'm not going to let you. I'm going to make sure you remember this moment for the rest of your life." I turned and walked toward the door, my heart pounding. Solomon called after me, his voice rising in panic. "Amara, wait. Please. We can work this out. I'll make it right. Just give me a chance." I didn't stop. I didn't even turn around. Because the truth was, there was nothing left to say. Nothing that could undo the damage he had caused. He had already made his choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. As I stepped outside into the night air, the weight of everything began to sink in. This wasn't just about getting revenge, it was about reclaiming my power. About standing up for myself in a way I never had before. Solomon had taken enough from me, and now it was time to take back what was mine. How will Solomon react when he realizes that Amara's not backing down? And what does she have planned next? Find out in the next episode. What do you think Amara should do next? Is she right to take control like this? Hit that like button if you're with her and comment below with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more twists in this story. The next few days were a blur. I didn't hear from Solomon, not until I received a message from him early on the third day after our confrontation. It was a simple text, one that he must have crafted carefully, trying to sound remorseful and regretful, but I could see right through it. It was another attempt at manipulation, another desperate plea to regain control of a situation he no longer controlled. "Amara, please. I know I've hurt you, but I'm asking you, give me a chance to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. We can work this out. Please. Come home." But I didn't respond. Not right away. I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Not after everything I knew now. Instead, I focused on the plan I had set in motion. Solomon thought he could get away with his affair, with his lies. But I was done being the silent partner in our marriage. I wasn't going to sit idly by and let him continue living this double life. He had to pay, and it wasn't going to be easy. I had already taken steps. The house, the one we'd built together, was now in my name. Solomon had no idea that the paperwork had been finalized. He thought he still had control, thought the house was just as much his as it was mine. But that wasn't the case anymore. I wasn't going to let him take everything from me, not when I had the power to take it back. On the day the paperwork was officially signed, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The weight of betrayal, of everything that had happened, was still there. But now I had something that was mine again. Something Solomon couldn't take from me. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I spent the next few days making calls, organizing meetings, and setting my next steps into motion. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I had to make him understand the consequences of his actions. It wasn't enough to take the house, to strip him of his financial security. No, I needed him to feel the full weight of the damage he'd done. And so, I set up a meeting with the lawyer. A meeting Solomon would never see coming. Solomon came home that evening, much earlier than usual, his footsteps loud as he entered the house. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through some papers, pretending to focus, but really, I was just waiting for him. I had been expecting this moment, the moment when he would come crawling back, begging for my forgiveness. It wasn't a matter of if it would happen. It was a matter of when. And now, here he was, standing in the doorway, looking as though he was about to say something profound, something that would fix everything. "Amara," he said softly, his voice hesitant. "We need to talk." I didn't respond immediately. I just kept my eyes on the papers in front of me, the one thing in the world that seemed to bring me some peace at the moment. He had taken everything, but I was starting to take it back. Slowly, piece by piece. "I know you're angry," he continued, stepping into the room. "But I need you to understand something. I messed up. I made a huge mistake. But I love you. I love you more than anything, and I want to make it right. Please, Amara, just please forgive me. I could hear the desperation in his voice. It almost made me laugh, the way he thought he could simply apologize and everything would go back to the way it was before. But it wasn't that simple. Not for me. Not anymore. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. I finally spoke, my voice calm, yet unwavering. And I'm not going to pretend anymore. You hurt me, Solomon. And I'm not going to let you get away with it. His face fell, the color draining from his cheeks. What do you mean? He asked, panic starting to creep into his voice. Amara, I swear to God, I'll do anything to make this right. Just give me a chance. I stood up slowly, walking over to the table where I had left the paperwork. I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to explain myself. Solomon saw at the moment I pushed the document across the table toward him, the deed to the house, now in my name. His eyes widened in disbelief. What? What is this? I've already taken the first step, I said quietly. You no longer have any claim to this house. It's mine now. You wanted to play games, Solomon? Well, now you'll understand what it feels like to lose everything. His mouth hung open, his gaze flicking between the paperwork and me, his shock evident. You can't be serious, he whispered. You can't just take everything away from me. That's not fair. That's not right. I crossed my arms, standing my ground. You made your choices, Solomon. Now you'll live with the consequences. He tried to reach for the papers, his hands shaking. This isn't over. I'll fight you for it. I smiled coldly. Go ahead. You're free to try. But you won't win. The silence in the room was suffocating as Solomon stood there, staring at the paperwork, unable to process what was happening. For once, he was the one who was powerless, and I reveled in the feeling. The balance of power had shifted. I won't let you ruin my life anymore, I said firmly. I've given you enough chances. Now it's my turn to take back what's mine. He stood there, stunned, unable to speak. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt free. What will Solomon do next? Will he try to fight for control, or has he lost everything? Find out in the next episode. This saga is just heating up. Don't miss what happens next. If you're rooting for Amara, like and share this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. What's your take on the situation? Do you think she's going too far, or is this justice? Subscribe and stay tuned for the next twist. The morning after Solomon's shock, I felt a strange calm wash over me. It wasn't relief, nor was it victory. It was something far more powerful. It was the knowledge that I had taken control of my life again. The house, the car, the bank accounts, everything that I had once thought was our shared life was now mine. Solomon had no idea what was coming next, but I had made my move. And it was only a matter of time before he realized the full extent of the game I was playing. For the first time in days, I allowed myself a moment of peace. I wasn't thinking about revenge or the next step. I was thinking about me. I had always put him first, always forgiven his mistakes, always told myself that love was enough to fix everything. But now, love felt like a distant memory, a fleeting emotion that had been replaced by anger and purpose. But even as I tried to savor this moment, I knew that it was far from over. Solomon wasn't just going to roll over and accept defeat. I could already hear the accusations forming in his mind. How could I do this to him? How could I take everything away? But he didn't know what I had planned. He didn't understand the depths of the betrayal he had committed. And he would soon find out. I spent the next few hours quietly making calls to my lawyer, calls to the bank, and calls to people who had once been Solomon's business associates. There were things he had hidden from me, things I needed to uncover before I could finish what I had started. I wasn't just going to take the house and let him go scot-free. I was going to make sure he understood the cost of his actions. Around midday, I received the call I'd been waiting for. My lawyer had pulled the final financial documents. Solomon's debts, his investments in questionable businesses, his hidden assets. It was all laid out in front of me, like a map to the treasure I had been searching for. Every dollar he'd taken from me, every lie he'd told, had a consequence now. As I hung up the phone, I felt the weight of what I was about to do. This wasn't just about hurt anymore. It was about justice. It was about making sure that no one could ever treat me like that again. Solomon was going to pay, and I was going to be the one to make sure of it. Later that evening, Solomon came home earlier than usual. He looked disheveled, his face drawn and tired as he walked through the door, probably expecting to find me wallowing in sadness. But he was wrong. I wasn't the same woman who had once depended on him for happiness. No, I had learned something in the past few days. Happiness wasn't something he could give me. It was something I had to create for myself. Amara, he said, his voice softer than before. He was trying to play the part of the remorseful husband again, but I saw right through it. We need to talk. I turned to face him, my arms crossed over my chest. We've talked enough, Solomon. Don't you think? He looked down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. Please, just give me a chance to explain myself. I made a huge mistake, and I'm sorry. I know I've hurt you, but I can't lose you. I can't lose everything. You already have, I said, my voice steady and cold. You lost everything the moment you decided to betray me, and now you're going to lose even more. Solomon raised his head, confusion crossing his features. What do you mean? I smiled darkly. It's time for you to learn that there's a price to pay for everything. You thought you could lie to me, deceive me, and get away with it, but you were wrong. You don't get to play both sides. You don't get to destroy our lives and walk away unscathed. He stepped forward, panic in his eyes. Amara, please. Whatever you're thinking, don't do it. I swear I'll fix this. You can't fix this, I replied. It's too late. I stood up, my feet taking me to the desk where I had placed the papers just a few days earlier. Solomon followed me, his hand reaching out to grab my arm. I jerked away from him, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. The years of lies, the countless times I had forgiven him. You want to fix this? Then you need to understand something, Solomon, I said, my voice cold and unforgiving. You don't get to decide how this ends. I do. I turned back to him, my eyes locking onto his. I've already made my decision. I'm going to make sure you pay for what you did. You won't get away with this. Solomon opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. I've already taken steps, Solomon. I've made the necessary arrangements. Your business deals, your debts, everything is in my hands now. You wanted to cheat and lie? Well, now you'll see how it feels when the tables are turned. When everything you've built starts to crumble. His face paled. You can't do this, Amara. You can't take everything from me. I already have, I replied. And it's only the beginning. What will Solomon do next? Can he salvage anything from the wreckage of his life, or is it too late? Amara's plan is in motion, and Solomon is in for the shock of his life. Find out in the next part. Are you ready to see Solomon's world fall apart? If you're as invested as we are, hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. What do you think will happen to Solomon next? Comment below and let us know your thoughts. Stay tuned for more twists and turns in this wild ride. The following morning, everything seemed strangely quiet. I had expected to feel satisfaction, some sense of triumph after everything I had set in motion. But there was only a strange, hollow emptiness inside me. As much as I had planned, as much as I had calculated every move, there was still that nagging feeling, like a ghost haunting my thoughts. Solomon. I had taken everything from him. But what did it leave me with? Was this really the justice I had imagined? Or was it simply a destructive force that had consumed us both? I pushed the thought away. This wasn't about me feeling bad. This was about him understanding that his actions had consequences. I had a right to make him suffer. I had a right to take back what he had stolen from me. That afternoon, as I sat in the kitchen, reviewing more paperwork, I heard the doorbell ring. It was odd. Solomon was at work, and I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood, walking slowly to the front door, my mind racing with possibilities. Who could it be? I opened the door, only to find a delivery man holding a large, sealed envelope. For Mrs. Amara Kofi, he asked, his voice polite but tired. That's me, I said, signing for the envelope, my heart pounding. I had no idea what this could be, but the timing felt like fate. My eyes flicked over the return address, An unfamiliar law firm, one I had never heard of. The man handed me the package with a nod, and before I could thank him, he turned and left. I brought the envelope inside, the air thick with tension. My fingers shook slightly as I tore it open, revealing a stack of documents. I scanned through them quickly, my heart racing faster with each line I read. It was a notice from Solomon's lawyer, a divorce petition. Solomon was fighting back. But this wasn't just any divorce petition, it was an aggressive one. It was full of demands, threats, and financial stipulations that made my blood run cold. He wasn't just trying to take me to court over our marriage. He was trying to take everything he could from me, my assets, my rights, even custody of the house. I read through the document once more, my mind spinning. How dare he? After everything he had done, after the betrayal, the lies, he was coming for me, trying to strip me of the very power I had just claimed. But he made a critical mistake. He underestimated me. This wasn't just about taking what he could. This was about him trying to take what was mine and getting away with it. But I wasn't going to let him. I quickly reached for the phone, dialing my lawyer's number. Hello. My lawyer's voice was calm and confident, the same tone I had become familiar with over the last few days. It's Amara. I just received Solomon's divorce petition. I need to respond. Immediately. Take a deep breath, Amara. We expected this. You've already made all the right moves. Don't worry, this is far from over. We've got everything in place. But he's fighting back, I said, my voice shaking despite myself. He's trying to take the house. Everything. He thinks he can just roll over me like before. I won't let him. I've had enough. I know, my lawyer replied. But you have the advantage now. He doesn't know what you've already done. I've got the counterclaim ready. I'll file it for you today. Let him try. We're not giving up anything. This battle's just begun. I felt a sense of relief, though only for a brief moment. Solomon thought he could turn this around, that he could pull some legal trick out of his sleeve and take control of the situation again. But he didn't know what I had already prepared. I had my counterclaim. I had the evidence. I had already played my hand. And now it was time for him to learn the consequences of thinking he could keep getting away with things. As I hung up the phone, I stood there, staring at the documents in front of me. I knew Solomon was desperate. He had nowhere to turn but to fight. And in his desperation, he would make mistakes. Big ones. Mistakes I would be waiting for. The next few days passed in a blur of calls, meetings, and strategizing. Every step I took was one step closer to seeing Solomon truly realize that he couldn't just waltz back into my life and take control of everything. It wasn't just the house. It was everything I had worked for, the life I had built on my own. He didn't get to tear that down with a simple petition. And then came the day I had been waiting for. The day Solomon tried to come home early, thinking he could apologize one more time, smooth things over with his charm, beg me to take him back. But this time, I was ready. The documents I'd prepared were already on the kitchen table. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to say a word. I knew he was going to try to play the victim, try to manipulate me into feeling guilty. But I had a better plan, a far more powerful one. I heard the front door open, and his footsteps approached. I stayed seated, watching the papers in front of me. I didn't move, didn't react, until I heard his voice. Amara, he said, the tone in his voice softer than before. I can't lose you. Please. I'll do anything. Just give me a chance. I slowly stood, not looking at him as I took the documents from the table and turned toward him. You've had your chance, Solomon, I said, my voice unwavering. And now it's my turn. His eyes widened as he saw the documents I held in my hand. What's this? He asked, his voice cracking. Your worst nightmare, I said, the words coming out colder than I intended. You thought you could take everything from me, but you didn't realize that I was already one step ahead. Will Solomon fight back with everything he has, or is his world already crumbling? Amara's not done yet. Stay tuned for the next shocking twist. If you're as eager as we are to see what happens next, hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more. Do you think Amara's finally getting the justice she deserves? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The days felt like weeks, and every time I closed my eyes, the gravity of what I had set in motion hit me harder. Solomon hadn't given up. He was persistent, more so than I had anticipated. But with every move he made, I felt my resolve harden. He wasn't just fighting for his pride anymore. He was fighting to keep his empire, the one built on lies and deceit. He was fighting to keep the life I had once shared with him. But I wasn't afraid. I was ready for this. The court case was looming, and I had prepared myself for a battle I knew would not be easy. Solomon had underestimated me from the beginning, thinking I would fold like I always had before. But now, I wasn't the same woman who had stood by him for years, swallowing my doubts and fears. That woman was gone. This woman would make him pay. I spent the next few days preparing for the final blow. I had everything in place: evidence, witnesses, documentation. Solomon thought he could destroy me, make me feel small, make me beg for forgiveness. But the truth was, he was the one who would be begging. I sat in my lawyer's office that afternoon, going over the final details before the court hearing. My lawyer, the one I had come to trust more than anyone in this mess, sat across from me, his eyes focused and calculating. "Amara," he said, looking up from the files in front of him. "Solomon is going to come at us hard. He's desperate. But you've got everything we need to win this case. The house is yours. The assets are yours. We're going to make sure he never thinks he can walk all over you again." I nodded, feeling the fire in my chest. "I'm ready." He smiled faintly. "We'll be ready too. But remember, it's not just about winning. It's about sending a message. About showing Solomon that his actions come with consequences. This isn't just about the house or the money. This is about dignity. Your dignity." I sat back in my chair, taking in his words. I had never felt more powerful, more sure of myself. But the battle wasn't over yet. I couldn't afford to lose my focus now. The day of the court hearing arrived quickly, and I found myself sitting in the waiting room, my stomach a twisted knot of nerves. Solomon wasn't here yet, but I knew he would be. He always showed up at the last minute, always with that smirk on his face, as though everything would go according to his plan. But today was different. Today, I wasn't the woman who waited for him to make decisions. Today, I was in control. When the door opened, I looked up. There he was. Solomon. His suit was perfectly tailored, his tie tight, his expression as arrogant as ever. But something was different. I could see it in the way he carried himself. He was nervous. His eyes darted around the room, and I could tell he was trying to keep his composure. But he wasn't fooling me. He didn't notice me at first. But when his gaze finally landed on me, his face went pale. The confidence was gone. In its place was the unmistakable look of fear. "Amara," he said, his voice quieter than usual. He hesitated before walking over to me. "Can we talk before the hearing starts?" I didn't respond at first. Instead, I stood up slowly, my eyes locked onto his. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, my voice steady, controlled. "You made your choice, and now you'll live with it." He opened his mouth to speak again, but I cut him off. "No more excuses, Solomon. You had your chance. You lied. You cheated. And now you'll face the consequences." He stepped closer, his hand outstretched. "Amara, please don't do this. You can't just take everything from me. I'm begging you." I met his outstretched hand with cold eyes. "You're not in control anymore, Solomon. I'm done begging you to fix things. You broke this. Now you get to live with the mess you've made." There was a flicker of something in his eyes, maybe regret, maybe desperation. But it was too late. I had already made up my mind. Just then, the door to the courtroom opened. The bailiff called us in, and Solomon stood there, his hand still hanging in the air. But I wasn't interested in his gestures anymore. I wasn't interested in his apologies. I was ready to see this through to the end. I walked past him, my head held high, my back straight. He followed me, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The courtroom was cold, sterile, and filled with the kind of tension that only came from a high-stakes legal battle. I sat at the table, my lawyer beside me, as Solomon did the same on the other side. He was trying to look calm, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes. He wasn't fooling anyone. The judge walked in, and we all rose, the formality of the situation settling over us. As the judge called the case, I felt the weight of the moment press down on me. This wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about something far bigger. It was about reclaiming my life, about standing up for myself, and making sure I would never again be silenced by a man who didn't deserve me. Solomon's lawyers stood first, presenting their case. It was full of accusations, blaming me for the breakdown of our marriage, attempting to paint me as the villain. But I didn't flinch. I knew this was coming. I had prepared for it. And when it was my turn, I stood up with a sense of calm strength, ready to face him. "I've given everything to this marriage," I said, my voice carrying through the courtroom. "But I will not stand by and let him destroy me. Not anymore." As I spoke, I watched Solomon's face twist in frustration. He wasn't prepared for me to be so strong, for me to stand up and say the things he'd spent years trying to suppress. Will Amara's testimony be enough to win the case? Or will Solomon find a way to turn the tables at the last moment? The final part is coming soon, and everything is about to change. This is getting intense. Don't miss the final chapter of this dramatic journey. Like, comment, and share this video if you think Amara's going to win this battle. And don't forget to subscribe to find out how this shocking story ends. The courtroom was silent. The weight of the final arguments hung in the air, thick with tension. Solomon's lawyer had just finished his closing statements, full of desperate claims about my supposed responsibility for the dissolution of our marriage. I could see the strategy: paint me as the villain, and perhaps the judge would be swayed in his favor. But there was no villain here except Solomon. I was done being the person who turned a blind eye. Now I was the woman who would get what was rightfully mine. I took a deep breath, standing once more to make my closing statement. I had prepared for this moment for weeks. Every word was calculated, every emotion controlled. I couldn't afford to be swayed now. This was my time to make him realize the full extent of what he had done, not just to me, but to us. "I've spent years being patient," I began, my voice clear and steady. "Years of forgiving, of hoping things would get better. But instead, I was left with lies, deceit, and betrayal. I was married to a man who thought he could have it all. He could cheat, he could lie, and I would just sit by and let him. But I won't let him win. Not this time." I felt the eyes of the courtroom on me, felt the weight of the judge's gaze, but I wasn't afraid. For once, I had the truth on my side, and that was all I needed. "Solomon thinks this is about money, about the house," I continued, glancing toward him. "But it's not. It's about respect. It's about trust. And I trusted him. I gave him everything. And he took it over and over again. So I'm standing here today, not just to protect my assets, but to protect my dignity, to protect what's left of me after everything he's done." I paused, letting the words sink in. The silence in the room was deafening. I could feel the tension building, but I kept my focus. I wasn't going to back down. Not now, not ever. "This isn't just about a house or a car or money," I went on, the fire in my chest growing. "This is about something far bigger. It's about a man who thought he could break me, who thought he could destroy my life and get away with it. Well, he's wrong. I'm not the woman I was when I married him. I've learned. I've grown. And now I'm taking back what's mine." I turned to the judge, locking eyes with him. "I don't want Solomon's money, Your Honor. I don't need it. But what I do need is the right to live my life on my terms. I need the peace to rebuild, to move forward, and I need my dignity back. I've worked hard for everything I have, and no one gets to take that from me." I felt the finality in my words. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Solomon's face twisted with frustration, his hands balled into fists as he sat there, looking like a man who had lost his last card. The judge, a middle-aged man with years of experience in family law, nodded slowly as he took in my words. He glanced at Solomon, then back at me. "You've made a compelling argument, Mrs. Kofi," he said, his voice grave. "This court will take all the evidence presented into consideration before making a final ruling." I sat back down, my legs weak beneath me, but I held my head high. I had said everything that needed to be said. The decision was now in the judge's hands, but I knew in my heart that this battle was over. Solomon had lost, and nothing he could do or say would change that. The hours between the hearing and the judge's decision were the longest I had ever endured. I sat in my lawyer's office, the paperwork for the final settlement on the desk in front of me, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting to what had happened, to the things Solomon had done to me, to us. I had given him everything. My love, my trust, my future. And in return, he had thrown it all away. But now, as I sat there, the power had shifted. He wasn't the one calling the shots anymore. I was. The door to the office opened, and my lawyer stepped inside, his face serious. Amara, the judge has made his decision. I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me. What did he decide? The lawyer sat down across from me, his face tight. The house is yours. All assets are awarded to you. Solomon will have to pay spousal support for a limited time, but he won't be getting anything more than that. The judge also ruled that you get full custody of the house, the business accounts, and all future assets. I sat there, stunned. The words were still sinking in. I had won. He had lost. And now, there was nothing he could do to take it back. How does he feel about it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Let's just say he's not happy, my lawyer said with a small, grim smile. He was hoping for a much different outcome, but the judge was clear about the facts. Solomon's actions spoke for themselves. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. It wasn't just a victory in court. It was a victory for me. For everything I had been through, for everything I had endured. I had finally taken back control of my life. Solomon had no more hold on me. Later that evening, I sat alone in the house, the same house I had once shared with Solomon, but now it felt different. It was no longer a symbol of my heartache. It was a place of strength, of new beginnings. I had reclaimed it, and with it, I had reclaimed myself. But as I sat there, I knew that the journey wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Solomon's chapter in my life was over, but my story was just beginning. What will Solomon do now that he has lost everything? And what's next for Amara? The next chapter of her life is only just starting. Find out what happens next in the finale. If you've been following this journey, don't miss the final chapter. Like, share, and subscribe if you're rooting for Amara's victory. What do you think Solomon will do next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. It had been a week since the court ruling, and the silence in the house was deafening. The walls that once held the laughter of a shared life now felt empty, hollow. Solomon was gone, as were the memories of the life we had built together, memories that once seemed so real, so unshakable. Now they felt distant, like a dream that had shattered beyond repair. I sat in the living room, my legs tucked under me as I gazed out the window. The city buzzed outside, life going on as it always did, but inside the walls of this house, it was as if time had paused. The fight was over, but the war had left scars that would take time to heal. It wasn't just the house or the assets I had won that kept me up at night. It was the emotional weight of everything. The years of love I had poured into a man who didn't deserve it. The trust one had given so freely, only to watch it crumble in an instant. The knowledge that I had been so blind to his betrayal for so long. But even in the midst of this pain, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't the same woman who had walked into that courtroom, desperate for justice. I had come out of it stronger, more certain of who I was. I had taken control of my life, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly free. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke my thoughts. My heart skipped a beat. It was him, Solomon. I had no idea why he was here or what he could possibly want after everything that had happened. I had made it clear, both in court and in the moments we'd shared since, that I wanted nothing to do with him. But there he was, standing at the door with that familiar, pitiful look on his face. It was the look of a man who had lost everything and didn't know how to handle it. His once perfect suit was now wrinkled, his hair disheveled. He looked like a man broken by the consequences of his actions, but I wasn't about to let that sway me. I didn't even ask him to come in. Instead, I stood there, crossing my arms, waiting for him to speak. He hesitated, his eyes searching mine, as if looking for some sign of the woman he had once known. "Amara," he said softly, his voice hoarse, "can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. There was nothing left to say, not in the way he wanted to hear it. I wasn't the person who would sit quietly and listen to his apologies anymore. I wasn't the person who would forgive him with a few words. He had burned that bridge long ago. "You've had your chance, Solomon," I said, my voice steady but firm. "And now it's too late." He flinched, but he didn't back down. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But Amara, please, can't we try to figure something out? You can't just throw everything away because of one mistake." "One mistake," I repeated, incredulity creeping into my voice. "Solomon, it wasn't just one mistake. It was a series of betrayals, lies, and deceit. And you think you can fix it all with a few words?" I took a step closer, my gaze never leaving his face. "No, Solomon. I'm not the woman you used to know. I don't need your words. I don't need your excuses. I need my life back." His eyes grew desperate, and for the first time, I saw the raw vulnerability in him, the kind I had never seen before, the kind of vulnerability that came when someone had lost everything. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I was selfish. I was stupid. But I love you, Amara. I can't lose you." I stood there, staring at him for a moment. It felt as though the world had shifted beneath my feet. I had spent so long loving him, wanting him to love me back. I had tried to be the perfect wife, the perfect partner, but he never saw me. He took me for granted, and now that it was too late, he was finally realizing what he had lost. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I don't need your love, Solomon," I said quietly. "I need respect. I need honesty. And you never gave me that." I turned away from him, my heart heavy but resolute. "You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. I've lived my life for you long enough. Now, I'm living it for me." I didn't hear him leave. I didn't need to. The door clicked behind him with a soft thud, and I knew deep down that this was the last time I would ever see him. The finality of it hit me like a wave, but there was no sadness, no regret, only a strange sense of relief. The next few weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, finalizing the last of the settlement and dealing with the aftermath of Solomon's desperate attempts to win me back. But no matter what he did, no matter how many letters, gifts, or apologies he sent, it was over. The judge's ruling had sealed his fate, and there was nothing he could do to undo the damage he had caused. As I walked through the house one evening, I realized that I was finally at peace. The weight of Solomon's betrayal no longer hovered over me like a dark cloud. The house, the car, the money, it was all just stuff. What mattered now was my freedom. What mattered now was me. I stood by the window, looking out at the city below, the lights twinkling like stars. It was a new beginning, one I was finally ready to embrace. Solomon had tried to break me, to strip away my dignity and my strength. But he hadn't succeeded. He had only made me stronger. For the first time in years, I smiled to myself, knowing that my life was finally mine to live. Amara has taken back everything she lost, but what does the future hold for her? With Solomon in the past, where will she go from here? Stay tuned for the concluding part. Amara's story is far from over. If you've been on this emotional roller coaster, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful endings. What do you think will happen next for Amara? Will she finally find peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for the conclusion. The sun was setting behind the skyline, casting a warm glow over the city as I sat in my living room, staring out the window. The room that had once been filled with the echoes of Solomon's footsteps and the weight of his presence now felt like my own again. It was strange, almost surreal. The silence that once haunted me now felt like a gift. I had spent so many years worrying about him, trying to make things work, trying to fix what wasn't mine to fix. But now it was just me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. The court ruling, the settlement, Solomon's desperate apologies, they were all behind me now. What mattered was what I was going to do next. What mattered was me. I had taken back my house, my life, and my freedom. I had reclaimed the woman I had almost lost in the pursuit of trying to keep a broken marriage together. The house was no longer just a symbol of my failures. It was a place where I could finally breathe, where I could rebuild everything that had been destroyed. It was mine. And that feeling, that sense of ownership, went beyond just the walls of this house. It was about me taking control of my own story. I glanced down at the papers on the coffee table. Finalized documents for the sale of Solomon's shares in the business, signed by him in a fit of desperation. There was nothing left for him to cling to now. No more lies. No more manipulation. Just the cold, hard reality of the choices he had made. And I had made mine. The phone buzzed, snapping me from my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. It was Ada, my best friend, the one person who had stood by me through everything. She had been there when I first discovered Solomon's betrayal, and she had never wavered in her support. I smiled to myself and answered the call. "Hey, Amara. I just wanted to check in. How are you doing?" Ada's voice was warm, full of the kind of understanding only a true friend could have. "I'm good," I said, my smile widening. "Actually, I'm more than good. I'm free, Ada. I've never felt this way in my entire life." I could hear the smile in her voice. "I'm so proud of you. You've been through hell and back, and now it's time for you to finally live for you. So what's next?" I paused, the question hanging in the air for a moment. What was next? The possibilities felt endless. For the first time in years, I had the power to choose. I could do whatever I wanted, no more compromises, no more hiding my true self for the sake of someone else. "I don't know yet," I said, my voice thoughtful. "But I think I'm ready to start something new. I'm going to take a break from all the chaos, figure out what makes me happy. I've spent so long building my life around someone else's expectations. Now it's time for me to figure out who I really am outside of all this." Ada's voice was soft but firm. "That's exactly what you need, Amara. You deserve this. And I know you'll do amazing things with the next chapter of your life." I could hear the pride in her voice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself, too. The conversation drifted into familiar territory, memories, plans for the future, and the simple joys that come with having a true friend by your side. But there was one thing I had to ask her before I hung up. "Ada," I said, my voice growing serious, "do you think I did the right thing?" I could practically hear Ada nodding, her confidence unwavering. "Amara, you didn't just fight for what was yours. You fought for your happiness. You showed the world and Solomon that you're not someone to be walked over. You stood up for yourself, and that's something to be proud of. You did the right thing." I smiled, feeling the weight of her words settle in my chest. "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything." "Anytime," she said, her voice soft with affection. "I'm just glad to see you taking control of your life again. You've been through enough, and now it's time to thrive." We said our goodbyes, and I set the phone down, looking out at the city again. The world outside was still bustling, moving forward, while I sat in this moment of quiet reflection. The past was behind me. The future was ahead of me, a blank canvas just waiting to be painted with the colors of my choice. I stood up, walking over to the window, my fingers tracing the edges of the glass as I looked out at the horizon. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and I felt something stir inside me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. Hope, excitement, a sense of purpose. The world was mine again, and this time no one would take it from me. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. I started taking more time for myself, traveling to places I had always wanted to see, reconnecting with old friends, and finally doing the things I had put on hold for so long. I also dove into work, reclaiming the parts of my career that had been overshadowed by Solomon and his lies. But the best part of all of it was the freedom I felt. I was no longer defined by a man or a marriage. I was finally defined by me. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at the woman who had come through so much. She was strong, she was confident, and she had a life ahead of her that she could finally call her own. I smiled at the reflection, knowing that this was just the beginning of the rest of my life. What lies ahead for Amara? Will she find love again? Or will she continue to build a life on her own terms? One thing is for certain. The story of her strength and resilience will continue. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for being with Amara through this journey. Her story isn't over yet. If you've loved watching her rise from the ashes of betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. What do you think is next for Amara? And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter of her journey.